Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is the info you don't know about China. And I think I'm going to help you to be able to understand what's really going on between Trump and Xi, between the tariffs in America, the tariffs in China. I think I'm going to be able to help you to see it, not from what we hear in the news, not from what Trump says, not from what the Chinese do, but from perhaps a whole nother angle. Okay. You may also have noticed I haven't been talking much about our sponsors lately. And there's a reason. So let me explain. There's an effect I'm going to call the Trump is going to fix everything effect. I started noticing it gently about a month before the election. But now it has arrived in full-blown fury. I have seen our donations fall. All three sponsors are down to practically sending us nothing. Our donations have dropped. Now, it's humiliating to talk about this. I would like to think that our message and our ministry is so strong, we'll never have to ask. But we are in a jam. I took just about everything out of our personal account, out of our PayPal account, out of our Stripe account. Emergency, we're down to, and we may still hit red today, and I've done everything I can do. Now, I'm about to tell you something that is going to shock you. So, I got a call from a longtime friend, and she helped Prophecy Club, her and her husband, for many years. They would take the, 15, 20 big blue bins of all our inventory home every month, store it in the garage, bring it back, set it all up, help behind the tables, do the inventory at the end, and take it back to the garage. And they did that once a month, every month for many years. And then God finally called her into the ministry, and she called yesterday, desperate. And I don't know what another way to tell you. I don't know another way to tell you, but just tell you. I wish I could pick my words better, but I just can't. So she called yesterday, and she says, if I don't get some help, some pygmies are going to die in the Congo. Some of you know what I'm talking about, some of you don't. And so I called Leslie in, and I said, we really don't have the money. But I know God will return it. And giving is not about giving when you have the money. Giving is about believing God. So here's what I'm impressed to send. We agreed on sending. She said, well, do we have that? I said, no, we don't. But we need to send her something. She said, how about half now, and then half like in a week or so when some more comes in? I said, that's good to me, so we sent it. If I told you the amount, and I told you the amount that's in our checkbook, you would say we're crazy. What are you doing? What are you doing? You don't have that. Yeah, no, I know. I don't have it. But giving is not when you have it. Remember the widow's mite? It's giving when you don't have it. So we gave. Now we're in a jam, just like I thought we'd be. But I believe God. I'm sorry. So if you can help, now would be a good time. Sorry. Let me get past this. I don't like this. I don't like getting emotional. And let me point out something. So in John 13, now this is Jesus was just told by the Father he'd been given all things into his hands. Yet he laid aside his garments, put on a towel, started washing the disciples' feet. And Peter said, "You think you're going to wash my feet? You're not going to wash my feet. You'll never wash my feet." And Jesus said, "If I don't wash your feet, you have no place with me." And he said, "Well, not my feet, only then my head too." Because in the kingdom of God, it's not just giving when you have it. It's giving believing God. Excuse me. Well, that was recorded Friday, but when I blow my nose and I pushed the mute button, I also bumped another button on my Mackie mixer, and it didn't unmute. When I thought I was talking to you, I wasn't. So maybe that's a good thing because now I can talk without so much motion. But the problem is we still need your support. So here it is now Monday morning, and as I thought, we are almost in the red. We are scrambling with everything we can scramble with to try to keep out of the red, and I'm not convinced we're going to make it through the day. As we have a lot of auto payments. Now, this is the whole Prophecy Club account that everything comes out of, not just paying our people, but all the other bills. And so, you never know when some kind of an auto payment is about to hit, but we are. It doesn't look like to me we'll make it through the day without hitting red. So anyway, if you can help, then now would be a good time. And the point that I was trying to make here in John 13 is that Jesus was just given all power in heaven and earth. And what did he do? He turned around and washed the feet of his disciples, meaning that's the kingdom of heaven. When Jesus is at the wedding supper and he is brought before the Ancient of Days and given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, his dominion is an everlasting dominion, his kingdom is that which shall not be destroyed, then what does he do? He comes and he serves us. He serves us at the marriage supper of the Lamb for about 4 months, and then he returns on white horses with us on white horses for Armageddon. Meaning, the kingdom of heaven is about giving, is about putting other people first. And when we gave, we didn't have the money to give, and it put us in jam just as I thought it would. But I believe God has spoken to my heart that he is going to take care of us. And so if God has blessed you and you could help us, now would be a very, very good time. We really need the help. Widespread unrest in China over U.S. tariffs and layoffs and unpaid wages and massive protests. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is in just a minute, I'm going to show you that this thing is also happening in America indirectly. Now, watch. Widespread unrest has erupted across China, triggering factory closures, unpaid wages, and massive protests by workers, bringing them to the brink of shuttering factories, leaving millions of workers without pay from industrial zones all over, and they're having to reduce like 30% of their staff. Now, that's happening in China now, but we're about to see the same thing happen in America, I believe. And I don't think that this problem with the China, with the ships stopping, is going to be fixed anytime soon. As you recall, Dana Coverstone saw that the Baltic Dry Index was dead. There wasn't a ship moving on the seas any place on the globe. So what I think the prophecies are going to be saying is this. I think that we are soon, and it could be a couple of weeks, couple of months. In other words, another point I need to make is I know a lot of people think, well, Trump's going to fix everything. We don't need Prophecy Club. We don't need to hear all this prophecy. We don't need to hear this negative stuff. Actually, I think that you need to hear it more. I think that more people need to hear it, which is why you want to click like, share, and subscribe so that we can get it out to more people. I think that we're looking at just like the prophecy says, the dollar's going to drop a third, finally down to zero. We're going to see riots in the cities, give us our entitlements. You remember Terry Bennett and Shane Warren saw that it was like civil war. Martial law, curfews are declared. food shortages. We got, what, 12 or 16 prophecies saying food shortages. Remember, Dana Coverstone saw bartering. If it's one person has a dream, yeah, maybe. But when you got 12, 14, 16 different people, godly men and women of God, saying the same things, we got to bend our ears forward and we got to listen. Banks confiscating all money and accounts. That Brandon Biggs saw that. Economy like a delicate cup. Remember that Neville Johnson? He's a prophet out of Australia, gone to be with the Lord now. He said he had an angel visit him, and he had a delicate cup. And he said on the outside it was beautiful, but on the inside it was filthy. And he said that the angel explained that this cup is like the world economies. He said on the outside it's very ornate and beautiful, but on the inside it's full of corruption, it's full of filth. And he said that this delicate cup is going to break. Then he saw him holding a man upside down by the ankles and was shaking him up and down. And gold and silver were falling out of his pockets, and also cures for things like cancer and Alzheimer's and diabetes. And the pharmaceutical companies had these cures for a long time, but they had not released them. Now, my point is, what you see in this article about the problems coming to China is also going to happen here, meaning the China, the U.S. thing, this whole trade thing is not going to be settled anytime soon. As a matter of fact, I think that China has, they have that red plan, and they want to take over the world. Well, there's nothing in American documents or the American heart. We don't want to take over the world. We just want to have peace and prosperity and get along and raise our children. But the Chinese, that's exactly what they want to do. And so their objective is to pull down America. Now, let's go on to the next point. Trump signs order aiming to cut funding to NPR and PBS. My opinion on this is good. I think that PBS and NPR should have never started. Look, at one time, we were on 80 radio stations, 25 TV stations. One time around the year 2000, we're spending about $300,000 a month on radio and TV time. At one time, Prophecy Club was the second prophecy ministry in America, second only to Jack Van Impe, according to my agent and his researchers. Anyway, at all of that, we had to survive by donations only. So I think that the public broadcasting is the antithesis, the opposite of Christian broadcasting, should also have to exist on just donations. Now, would they exist? No. Why? Ask any waiter or waitress in any restaurant. Who gives more, Democrats or Republicans, or non-Christians versus Christians? They can all tell you Republicans, i.e. Christians, and I'm not saying every Republican's a Christian, okay? I understand that. I'm talking about very generalities here. But they will tell you that the Democrats or the unsaved ones give very, very little, if anything, in tips. In other words, they tend to be stingy people. They're not big givers. I think that I'm not trying to attack them, but that's what they'll tell you. So they're saying, NPR, PBS, this is going to be a devastating impact on Americans. Well, good. I think it'll be a term for the good. I think it should have happened a long time ago. Not exactly the whole point that I'm trying to make today, but you can pause and read all of that if you want to. I think that it's a good thing. And I think it's one of the many things where the devil is used to come in to kill, steal, and destroy. All right, now on to the next one. U.S. imposes full-scale secondary sanctions upon Iran oil. Now, this is one of the major points that I wanted to get across today. China is the largest buyer of Iran oil. So it is China that is propping up Iran economically. I'm about to give you some information on that. Trump is making it impossible for China to do any business with the United States. China didn't even call. Chinese delegations were seen entering the U.S. Treasury Department last week. What's going on? Again, I do not think that the problem with the tariffs in China is going to be solved anytime soon. I think that we can probably count on nothing Now, I'm not trying to be negative. I'll explain to you why. For two reasons. One is China wants to take over the world. China has plenty of money. They have lots of gold and silver, and they're not hurting. They got lots of money. America, that's the reason Trump is having to fix the tariffs, because we're just about bankrupt. So who can survive not having trade for a while? I know Trump says, oh, America, we're the big powerful ones. Yeah, well, China got a lot of money too. And I think China will sit there and watch us start squirming, and we're going to start, give us our entitlements. We're going to have riots in the streets. It's going to be bad. Now, let me tell you another thing. I had an article on the program 6 months ago, and it was talking about how China was doing some deep oil well drilling out in the middle of a desert in China. And everybody could not understand why they were drilling in this location, because no oil had been found in that area. Now, let me tell you, the Bible says that the Holy Spirit lead us into all truth. And that's the reason we Christians get accused of being conspiracists or conspiracy theorists or something like that, because the Holy Spirit speaks to our heart on a truth. But we don't have the proof, and we speak it out. We say, well, this is what I think. Well, you got any proof for that? Well, no, I don't, but this is what I think. And we find out now that a lot of those conspiracy theories are actually coming to pass. They're actually accurate. And I think what is going on is the Holy Spirit is speaking to the hearts of Christians just like he said he would. And so sometimes we know some things that we can't prove. And of course, the left, you got to have proof. Okay, well, let me tell you one of those things. I think that the Russians have scalar wave, and there's a lot of proof to that. What is scalar wave? It doesn't go A, B, C, D like light or like radio waves. It goes from A to Z with nothing in between. It is interdimensional. In other words, it doesn't necessarily always exist in our plane of existence. It leaves spot A, and it arrives at any one of those spots from A to Z without going through anything in the middle. It can access anything on the planet, and what I believe is anything in the galaxy. They say that the sun is doing some funny things. My guess is it's scalar wave doing it. It can make large portions of the atmosphere super hot or super cold. What can that do? That changes the weather. It can make hurricanes, make tornadoes, it can make droughts, it can make floods, it can make lightning, it can cause fires, all of which we've started to see here lately. And it can cause climate change. Well, la-di-da. So they are in charge of climate change with scalar wave. But I read one article that said that scalar wave is what caused the Chernobyl meltdown, was it 30 years ago? And what this article said was that this is in the early phases of learning how to operate the scalar wave. And what they did is they used scalar wave, and it actually, how do I say this? It ignited, this is not the right word, but it ignited the uranium that was at Chernobyl and caused the meltdown. In other words, the Russians, playing with their scalar wave, learning how it works, actually caused the whole Chernobyl meltdown. And it's a very well written article by, again, many, many years ago. Now, here's what I think. I think that China and Russia have become buddies. And I think that Russia, one of their blessings they give to their new Chinese buddies, is to say, we'll tell you where to drill for oil. So they use their scalar wave that can see through the entire Earth, side to side, top to bottom, everything in between it. They can find any gold, silver, diamonds. They can locate anything in the Earth with scalar wave because it sees through everything. There's nothing that can stop scalar wave. In other words, like lead and kryptonite and Superman, all that, nothing stops scalar wave. It goes through everything. So I think the Russians use scalar wave to tell the Chinese where some massive amounts of oil deposits, which unfortunately are located very deep in this desert, And in addition to them, has also sent some deep well experts over to China. And this was like 6, 9 months ago. And they also have some new technology that can drill extremely fast, extremely deep, and do it very safely. That's Russia's forte. I believe God gave them that. Now, let's get back to what we're talking about. So, the whole bugaboo here is China is the largest buyer of Iran oil. Well, that's assuming that China doesn't have any oil. But in the last 6 to 9 months, my guess is, I can't prove this, my guess is that China has hit that deep oil and they now are starting to have their own oil. Meaning, if Trump causes China not to be able to buy oil from Iran, it might not hurt China at all. In other words, no big deal. We can't buy oil from Iran anymore. That's fine. We don't mind doing that at all. So sometimes presidents should be listening to what God says to his prophets. There were several references by President Trump to China and the U.S. talking, which were all directly denied by China. Now, I'm learning that China has not negotiated and not even called the U.S. about tariffs. So, about 80% of the pharmaceuticals in U.S. drugstores are either made in China or supplied, the raw material supplied. In other words, if we need some kind of pharmaceuticals, we're about to be in trouble. If you got to have something from the drugstore, you better get it now. On to the next article. Trump put this out and says all purchases of Iranian oil or petrochemical products must stop now. Any amount of oil or petrochemicals from Iran now will not be allowed to do business with the United States. So anybody that's buying Iran oil now can't do business with the United States. But it's designed to hurt Iran, and secondly, to put China in a position to where they have to come to the table, bend the knee to Trump, and cooperate with his tariffs. But that's the point. I don't think China is that hurting for oil anymore. I think they've found massive amounts of oil in China, but unlike us, they aren't putting it in the news. So that's the point I wanted to make. All right, let's go on to the next one. So a friend of mine showed me what Grok is. Now, this is kind of like ChatGPT. It's an AI. And so I was playing around with it, and I asked it this question. Grok, I said, what is the news about China drilling for deep oil? Well, it had some confirmation. It says that they are achieved a significant, this is talking about China, have achieved a significant milestone by extracting 150 million tons of oil and gas, equivalent to 37% of China's total oil and gas production in 2024. What's that saying? It's saying that China did just hit a massive amount of oil and gas. 37% of all of the oil and gas that China needs. You see, like, for example, Deepwater Horizon. Perhaps you recall that a few years back. It was a big platform out in the Gulf of America, then it was Gulf of Mexico, and it blew up. But they said that it was 20,000 psi coming out of that. Now, what's 20,000? Well, our tire pressure in most tires is 32 psi, pounds per square inch. 20,000 psi is enough to blow through most steel if it's not hardened steel. They said even that much, 20,000 psi coming through a hardened steel pipe could eventually wear out the inside of the pipe. In other words, they said that one well could provide all of the oil that America needs for 100 years if it had been able to come in. My guess is that China has hit a series of several wells that is coming very close to providing all of the oil that China needs, meaning America is not able to force China to the tariff table, we'll say it that way, because they've cut off the oil supply from Iran to China. That's the point I want to make. It goes on to say, this underscores the basin's critical role in China's energy sector, with wells often exceeding 6,000 meters in depth. What's 6,000? That's like 2,500 feet. Okay, now since I have a little bit of an oil background, the deepest well ever drilled in the world was drilled by the Russians like 30, 35 years ago, and it was to 40,000 feet. That's the deepest well in the world. What that's saying is it is a deep well. What you're looking at is saying that this is proof that China has drilled a deep well to some 23,000, I think it is, 23,000 feet. That's a deep well. Okay, so most wells in West Texas are like 4,000 foot. Okay, that's not much at all. But 25,000 feet, that's a deep well. Okay, I don't know at what depth they decide that that's the difference between a deep well, but I can tell you that the deepest well ever drilled in Israel is to 21,427 feet, and it was drilled up near Haifa. On to the next one. Further, this is still grok. China drilled to a depth of 10.9 kilometers, and I think that's like 23,000 feet. 25,000 feet. It's deep, marking the second deepest well globally. Okay, so that's deep. They're down deep. Now, let me explain. Why do you want to have a deep well if you can have a shallow well? Because the deeper you go, the hotter the oil is. Not that you want the hot, but the higher quality. The closer it is to the surface means that it was created down here at this level, and then it zigzags up and it seeks up. But by the time it gets up near the surface, it has now lost a lot of its hydrocarbons, propane, butane, gasoline, those things that can evaporate. And so by the time it reaches the surface, the closer it gets to the surface, the more tar it is. And the thicker, the blacker, the more tar-like it is the less energy. And to get whatever energy is in it out of it takes more processing, more energy to get the energy out, okay? But the deeper is the higher quality. This is actually from West Texas, from Sprayberry. This is yellow-colored crude oil. I'll show you, shine a light on it. My flashlight's not very bright. I don't know if you can even see that. But it's that's actually crude oil, and it's yellow-colored. This is a honey bear. As you can see, if you put them side by side, it's about the same color. China may not need the oil. This is my point. China may not need the oil from Iran. Russia may be helping China to locate vast amount of oil in China and also giving them advanced rapid drilling technology. Cutting off sales of oil from Iran to China may not hurt China at all. Now, it'll obviously start to hurt Iran, but it'll take a while for that to actually kick in. And that's my major point of today. Okay, so one more time. Yeah, Prophecy Club is in a jam right now because about a month before the election, all of a sudden our donations started dropping because Trump's going to fix everything. Well, we don't need Prophecy Club anymore. But I think that all of these things we've been talking about are at the door. I think they are about to hit. So we ask you, if God has blessed you and you can help us, now would be a really good time. We really appreciate your help.